17 years ago, my family got our first DVD player. And you know what our first DVD was? Matilda. But you want to know what our first cool movie was? X-Men. That's right. I remember this movie as being a big part of my childhood. And what bigger part of it than what was our main star, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. You see, back then, we weren't getting superhero stuff every couple of months. And what we did get really didn't seem to really have any effort put into it. So to see this movie where you have everyone giving it their all and really going hard into it, it really, I think, played a big part in making superhero movies what they are today. So going into Logan, I'm not just going in with simply just, oh, it's another action movie, oh, it's another comic book movie. No, I'm going into it with all that history and all that sort of era of filmmaking and all of that, going in to see Hugh Jackman's last ride as Logan. As far as we can tell, let's not forget, money is a very powerful motivator. But how does this movie hold up? Well, if you read the title, you know that I think this is the best Fox superhero movie, period. And there's a lot of reasons for this. And I'm here to talk about them today. And just go see this movie! But let's get started. First up, one of the most important things that I think allows this movie to work is the story. The plot is simple. You've got Logan. You've got Patrick Stewart as Professor X. You've got this little girl, and it's a road trip movie. Like, this immediately changes the tone of the other films in the X-Men universe. The other X-Men movies try to be these big stories of bigotry and hatred and judgmental and where that can push people, and that's great. But the thing is, Logan as a character in movies or comics is really not someone who cares. He doesn't. And the movie takes full advantage of this. We get this much smaller, more intimate, character-driven narrative. Like, there is a lot of great vulnerability to this story, and that brings me up to another great part in this, the acting. Essentially, the performances in this film are, oh god, they're amazing. Hugh Jackman, his final time up at the role, it might be my favorite. He really gets to a place I wasn't expecting. Well, I kind of did from the trailers, but it really goes in a lot of good places. He's very vulnerable in this film. There's just a lot of shots of him, like, looking in the mirror and seeing how, bad it's getting and seeing how he's falling apart. There's a lot of emphasis on this throughout the film, and you see it visually and through the way he talks and the way he's act. There's just this sense that he's not well. And then you have Patrick Stewart as Professor Xavier, who in my opinion is one of the all-time greatest comic book movie castings. And this is also his greatest performance in the role. Professor X in this film, I wasn't expecting much out of him, but every scene he's in, he just tantalizes you, and you can't look away as you see him at the end of his life, like, he's falling apart with dementia. You see how his psychic powers are starting to fail him. You just see all this, and again, it's so vulnerable. Like, I remember there was a time when these movies where they always had to be all truth, justice, American way, and if they did try and show off a little bit of the vulnerability, it was usually overplayed and was kind of unbelievable. Not in this movie. You believe these performances. You believe these characters. You get such a sense that they feel real. Like, Hugh Jackman's a very handsome man. In this movie, he looks extremely gruff. He looks extremely worn and weary, like someone you could run in this situation. Patrick Stewart as Professor X. He also looks like he's very tattered and down and out. And I gotta give it up to our newest performer, X-23, Laura Kinney. I got her name on the screen. She's excellent. One thing I was afraid of in the trailers, you never hear her talk, and I was afraid that maybe perhaps her acting sounded stilted or stunted or anything like that. Like, she just wasn't getting into the character right. Oh boy, was I wrong. Is she great in this movie? This actress they got has an incredibly hard challenge, and because she can't talk, she needs to get across everything her character is through her actions and her expressions. Not always easy, but she handles it perfectly. Every time she looks at you, every time she looks at the camera, you get such a sense of who she is and what she's been through and everything she goes through. And all the scenes of her, like, beating people up and killing people and cutting people in the jugular, I was expecting those to look a little silly. And one or two of them, a little bit. But for the most part, she handles the action so well. She just has this vicious edge to her, which I hope is made up for the movie, or else we're breeding a serial killer. But it's just such a well-casted, well-acted. The villains in this, the main villain, Donald Pierce, he's not bad. He's very good. He's entertaining. He's great when he's on screen. But this is kind of like with the MCU films where you're not that interested in the villain because you'd rather follow the characters. I'm not trying to discredit him. I'm just saying could have taken or leaving him. And I'd say that about all the villains in this movie. One in particular towards the end kind of took me out of it for a little while. But all in all, I think that's it. And then there's the piece de resistance, the action. When it was announced that this was going to be a rated R movie, never did I think it was going to go as far as they do. I thought Deadpool was a success. They're like, we're going to capitalize on that success. And I do believe part of the reason this movie is so great is because Deadpool made money. They let them take the reins off and do whatever they want. But the action in this film is so unique to it. It is very similar to the action in the Wolverine just cranked up, but that would make sense. It's the same director, James Mangold, who clearly really understands the gruesome and violent nature of Wolverine. Even in The Wolverine, I always sort of felt that, how did this movie get away with PG-13 at times? This movie, they didn't even bother. The minute this film starts, they show you what you're in store for. People getting their heads chopped off, their arms chopped off, stabbed through the chest. Like, it never stops. It's bloody, it's violent, and it's gory, but it never feels without purpose. I always believed watching this film that everything going on was what would probably go on if this could happen. Like, this film has such a great sense of emotion to it. And everything from the camera work to the way the action is handled, everything just from the beginning feels absolutely perfect. And I think that's why I love this movie so much. It's the fact that they took away all the excess characters. The other X-Men are referenced once for obvious reasons. That's about it. There's really not even a lot of big set pieces. There's really the climax, even though there's a lot going on, doesn't feel huge. Hell, honestly, you could have taken the whole mutant element out of this. Make it that Logan is just some sort of weird experiment, and that's where this girl comes from, and that would have been also worked. It's such a great, well-written, well-driven character piece. And as a guy who loves superheroes and I love to follow my favorite characters, for the first time ever, I really loved Wolverine. Like, I felt that the films have oversaturated us with him. He's the focus of all of them, much to the detriment of other characters who, in the comics, I kind of like more. But this time, such an emotional connection was made, and I really do feel like it's because you strip away all the corporate, you strip away all the flash, you strip away all the sort of big, impossible sort of crazy stuff, and you're left with this character who is violent, who is probably the last person who should take care of a child, and you get what is, in my opinion, a pretty close to perfect movie. But what did you think? In the comment section below, give me your thoughts on this film. Do you think it's close to perfect? Do you think they will get Hugh Jackman back? Because again, let's be real here, money talks! But that's it for now. As always, click to like and click to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.